I've always loved Christmas. Every year, I poured my heart into decorating my home with lights and ornaments that reflected the joy of the season. I spent countless evenings untangling strings of lights and carefully placing each ornament, believing that this magic brought my family closer. My wife Zara and I cherished these moments as the one time when everything felt right in our little world. This year, however, changed everything. One chilly December morning, I found a letter on our doorstep from our Homeowners Association. The notice was blunt and cold. Our dazzling display was deemed too much, and we were warned to tone it down immediately. As I read the words, my heart pounded with a mix of disbelief and anger. I couldn't understand how something meant to spread joy could be seen as a threat to our community. I remember whispering to myself, "What do they know about the spirit of Christmas?" The words echoed in my mind as I stared at the letter, realizing that this wasn't just about lights. If I lost this battle, it could mean more than a ruined holiday season. It could shatter my family's happiness, damage my reputation in the community, and even strain the bond between Zara and me. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of a conflict that would test every part of who I am. I woke up that morning with a heavy heart, the letter still burning in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was not just about lights, it was personal. I sat down with Zara at the breakfast table, my hands trembling slightly as I spread out the notice. "Zara, look at this," I said in a low, steady voice. "They want to take away our Christmas magic. They say our lights are too much, but it feels like they are trying to take away more than that." Zara's eyes filled with worry as she read the words. "This isn't just about our lights," she whispered. "It's about our home, our family. They are challenging everything we hold dear." Her voice wavered, and I could see the fear and anger mix in her eyes. As we talked, I couldn't help but feel that something deeper was at work. I remembered overhearing hushed conversations among neighbors about the HOA's growing power and strange alliances with local businesses. Could it be that they were targeting us to set an example? The thought made my stomach churn. Determined to protect our sanctuary, I decided to call our neighbor, Rylan, a quiet man known for his honest nature. "Rylan, have you heard anything about this?" I asked over the phone, my voice cracking with urgency. His reply was cautious, yet revealing. "I've seen some odd meetings at the community center lately. It sounds like they're planning more than just restrictions on lights. I think they want to control our lives, step by step." The conversation left me unsettled and even more resolved. The HOA was no longer just an organization enforcing rules. It was a force that threatened our very way of life. In that moment, I realized I had to fight back, not just for the sake of our Christmas lights, but for the future of our community, our family, and our freedom to celebrate who we are. I knew the road ahead would be hard, filled with unexpected turns and painful choices. Yet as I looked at Zara, whose silent strength reassured me, I promised myself that I would not let fear win. This was just the beginning of a battle that would test our loyalty, our courage, and everything we believed in. That night, I decided to start investigating on my own. While Zara slept, I sat in front of my laptop, my heart pounding with every search I made. I recalled Rylan's warning about secret meetings and strange alliances. As I dug deeper, I found hints in public records, unusual payments from the HOA to a local company with ties to powerful figures. Each discovery made me feel more uneasy, as if I was uncovering a hidden plot against our community. I couldn't keep this to myself. The next day, I met with a neighbor, Lila, at our local park, a place where many of us gathered for small chats. Lila's voice trembled as she shared what she had overheard. "I heard the HOA board talking about controlling more than just our lights," she whispered, glancing nervously around. They mentioned something about pushing out anyone who won't play by their rules. Her words left me shaken and filled with both anger and fear. As I listened, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me. I felt anger for the injustice, sadness for the potential loss of our home's warmth, and fear for what the future held. I knew deep down that this was no ordinary dispute over decorations. It was a struggle for our rights and our very way of life. I realized that to protect our community, I had to expose the hidden truths behind the HOA's actions, even if it meant risking my own peace. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would fight back against the force that was trying to strip away not just our Christmas magic, but the freedom to live our lives on our own terms. The investigation had only just begun, and I was determined to uncover every secret, no matter how painful the truth might be. That evening, I returned home with new evidence clutched in my hands. A series of emails hinting at a secret meeting between a trusted member of our community and the HOA board. My hands trembled as I sat down at the kitchen table, the soft hum of the night around me. I knew something was off, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to learn. I looked at Zara, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and disbelief. "Zara, I found these emails," I said quietly, laying them in front of her. "They show that someone close to us is working with the HOA. I need to know. Are you hiding something?" For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, with tears welling in her eyes, Zara sighed deeply. "I didn't want to hurt you," she began, her voice shaky. "I spoke with Mr. Dalton, someone from my family. I was scared. The HOA is strong, and I thought if I cooperated a little, maybe they wouldn't take everything away from us." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt a mix of betrayal and sorrow. Zara had always been my partner, my confidant. I struggled to understand why she would side with those who threatened our home and our happiness. "But Zara," I whispered, "this isn't about protecting our home. This is about us, our family, our right to live freely and celebrate who we are." Tears spilled over as she continued. "I did it to save our family's future. I thought if I could calm them down, they wouldn't push for more restrictions. I was afraid of losing everything, the house, our peace, even our love." Her confession was raw, filled with regret and fear. In that moment, my anger clashed with my love for her. I felt the sting of betrayal, yet I understood her pain. The internal conflict tore at me. How could I fight the HOA while my own partner was entangled in their plans? The stakes were higher than ever. It wasn't just about Christmas lights now. It was about our entire way of life. I took a deep breath and softly said, "Zara, we are stronger together, even when we are lost. I need you to trust me now. We have to stand up to them, all of them, to protect our home and our future." Her eyes searched mine, filled with remorse and hope, and I knew that despite the betrayal, there was a chance to mend what was broken. In that painful moment, I realized that the battle was not just external. It was a fight within our hearts, too. And as the night grew darker, I promised myself that I would not let this betrayal break us. Instead, it would fuel my determination to uncover every secret and reclaim the joy we had always known. I decided to meet Rylan in secret that next day, away from prying eyes. I drove to a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. Rylan was already waiting for me, his face drawn with worry. As soon as I sat down, I said, "Rylan, I need to know everything. The HOA's scheme is bigger than I thought, and now I feel even more betrayed by people I trusted." Rylan leaned in closer and whispered, "I found something disturbing last week." It turns out one of our most trusted community leaders, Mr. Hensley, has been secretly meeting with the HOA board behind closed doors. He was always the one who spoke up for our rights, but now I see that he might be the mastermind behind these shady deals. My heart sank. Mr. Hensley was like a mentor to many of us. I remembered his inspiring speeches at community gatherings and his kind smile. The thought that he was part of the secret plan was almost too much to bear. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Rylan nodded. "I have proof. There are recordings and emails. I even saw him meeting with a person who looked very much like a high-ranking HOA official." The revelation hit me hard. My anger grew, not just for the HOA, but for someone I had admired for so long. I thought about Zara's confession, and now this betrayal by Mr. Hensley. The web of lies was deep, and I felt trapped between my duty to fight back and the pain of seeing my community crumble from within. I left the coffee shop with a heavy heart, realizing that my battle was no longer just about our Christmas lights. It was a fight for truth and justice, in a community where even the trusted had turned their back. As I drove home, I felt a mix of determination and deep sorrow. I knew that exposing this betrayal would hurt many, but it was the only way to save our community and restore hope. I vowed to gather all the evidence I could, no matter how painful it might be, and to stand strong for the sake of my family, my neighbors, and the true spirit of our home. That evening, I returned home, determined to put together every piece of evidence I could find. I spent hours poring over emails, recordings, and public records. Each document added another thread to the tangled web of lies that the HOA and its allies had spun around our community. I felt both angry and scared as I uncovered more proof of secret meetings and hidden deals. Every new detail made it clear. This was not just about a few extra lights on my house. It was a full-scale betrayal that reached deep into the heart of our neighborhood. While sorting through the files, I received an unexpected message from an unknown number. The message read, "Meet me at the old community center tonight. I have information that could change everything." My pulse quickened. Was this a trap? Or was it the breakthrough I desperately needed? I knew the risk, but the possibility of finally exposing the truth was too important to ignore. That night, under a sky heavy with clouds, I drove to the old community center, a place that once buzzed with friendly chatter and neighborhood gatherings. The building stood silent and abandoned, its empty halls echoing with memories of better times. Inside, a lone figure waited in the dim light. As I approached, the person stepped forward, a middle-aged woman with determined eyes and a calm demeanor. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper as the tension in the air grew thicker. She replied quietly, "My name is Evelyn. I used to work closely with the HOA board until I realized how deep the corruption goes. I have evidence that not only confirms what Rylan and I have suspected, but also shows that even more trusted members of our community are involved." Evelyn handed me a small flash drive. This contains recordings and documents from meetings that were meant to be secret. "I risked everything to get this because I believe our community deserves the truth," she said, her eyes steady with resolve. Holding the flash drive in my hand, I felt a mix of hope and dread. Here was the proof that could turn the tide, but it also meant exposing painful truths about people I had once trusted. I knew that using this evidence would not only bring down the corrupt leaders, but might also hurt many families who were caught in the crossfire. As I left the community center that night, the cold wind seemed to carry whispers of warning. I promised myself that, no matter how heavy the truth, I would share it with our community. The investigation was no longer just about our Christmas lights. It had become a fight for justice, trust, and the soul of our neighborhood. Every step forward, every piece of evidence gathered, deepened my resolve. The web of deceit was tightening, and I was determined to unravel it, even if it meant risking everything I held dear. That night, I sat alone with the flash drive in my hand, my mind racing with everything I had uncovered. I stared at that small device as if it held the key to either saving our community or destroying it completely. My heart felt heavy with the burden of the truth and a deep fear of what might come next. Every new piece of evidence brought hope, but it also cut like a knife, reminding me of the betrayals that had left our lives in turmoil. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. I decided to reach out to Marcus, a local journalist known for his honest reporting on corruption. Late that night, I drove to his modest office, clutching the flash drive like a lifeline. When I explained everything, the harsh letter from the HOA, Zara's painful confession, Ryland's secret warnings, and now Evelyn's damning evidence, Marcus listened with a grave expression. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked quietly. "Once the truth is out, nothing will ever be the same." I could only nod, feeling both determined and uncertain. "I have to, Marcus. It's not just about the Christmas lights. It's about saving our community and protecting our families." Before I left, Marcus added another twist. "I got an anonymous tip today," he said. "Someone claims they have proof that even higher-level officials are involved in this corruption." His words sent a shiver down my spine. The conspiracy ran deeper than I had ever imagined. I left his office with a heavy heart and a promise to meet this anonymous source the following day. As I walked back to my car under the cold night sky, my mind was a storm of emotions, hope mixed with dread. I wondered if revealing every secret would finally bring justice or plunge us into further chaos. Sitting alone in the dark, I felt the weight of every betrayal, every hidden deal, and every moment of doubt. The silence of the night echoed the loneliness of my battle. I knew that the road ahead was dangerous, but if I didn't act, our community would lose far more than just our Christmas tradition. It would lose its very soul. The next day, I met the anonymous source at a quiet diner on the edge of town. I sat in a corner booth, my hands still trembling from the events of the previous night. A young man in a faded jacket approached and sat down without a word. He introduced himself as Jay. "I have proof that this goes even higher than we thought," he whispered. His eyes darted around nervously before he slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside were documents and photos linking several high-ranking city officials to secret deals with the HOA. I felt a mix of shock and dread. Here was evidence that could shake the entire community, not just our neighborhood. Jay continued. "I was part of the team working on this for a while. I couldn't stand by and watch our town be ruined. I know this may hurt many, but the truth must come out." His voice wavered with a sense of urgency and sadness. As I looked through the papers, I realized that the corruption was far deeper than I had imagined. The documents showed money transfers, hidden meetings, and even threats against those who tried to speak out. The burden of this truth weighed heavily on me. I wondered how many lives would be affected if this scandal exploded into the public eye. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, I felt a surge of determination to expose this corruption and save our community. On the other hand, the thought of the fallout, the anger, the loss, and the possible retaliation filled me with deep fear. I asked Jay softly, "What if they come after us? What if exposing this destroys everything we've built?" Jay's reply was calm but firm. "Sometimes the truth is worth the risk. You have to believe that our community deserves honesty, even if it costs us dearly. Change only comes when we face our darkest truths." In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. The fight was no longer just about my home or our Christmas lights. It was a battle for justice that could tear apart the very fabric of our lives. As I left the diner with the envelope clutched in my hand, my heart pounded with both hope and terror. The path ahead was uncertain, but I vowed to see this fight through, no matter the cost. That evening I sat with Marcus at his small office as we prepared to share everything. We had gathered the evidence, the emails, recordings, documents, and photos that exposed the corruption reaching high into the city officials and the HOA. My hands still shook, but I knew that this was our last chance to set things right. Marcus set up his computer, and together we began crafting a story that was honest and raw. "This is more than just about Christmas lights," I said softly. "It's about our community, our trust, and the way power has been abused for too long." His determined nod told me that he believed in the truth as much as I did. The next day, Marcus's report went live. The video was simple but powerful, showing the evidence and my own story of betrayal, fear, and hope. The reaction was immediate. Neighbors, who had once been silent, began speaking up. Community meetings turned into heated discussions as more people stepped forward with their own experiences. The very leaders who had once seemed untouchable now found themselves under a sharp spotlight of public anger. In one tense community meeting, I stood in front of everyone, my heart pounding. "We trusted you," I said, my voice wavering yet strong. "And you broke that trust. This isn't just about a fight over decorations. It's about our rights, our home, and our future." Faces in the crowd mirrored my anger and sadness, but also a burning hope for change. The fallout was dramatic. Several high-ranking officials resigned, and the HOA board was forced to re-examine its rules. Some families suffered from the initial shock and betrayals, but slowly, the community began to rebuild trust. I realized that while the truth had been painful, it was the only way to move forward. Late one night, after a long day of community hearings and hopeful discussions, I sat with Zara on our porch. The cool night air was filled with a mix of relief and lingering sorrow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I reached out, taking her hand. "We did what we had to do, Zara. We saved our home, even if it meant facing our darkest truths." In that quiet moment, I felt both exhausted and strangely at peace. The journey had been long and filled with twists that had challenged every part of who I was. Yet, as I looked at the faces of my neighbors coming together, I knew that even the deepest betrayals could lead to a new beginning. I ended that day with a promise: to continue fighting for truth and justice, to never let fear silence our voices, and to always cherish the light of hope, even on the darkest of nights.